Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Silfab Solar Innovations, a deep dive into the latest advances with our special guest from Tesla. My name is Daniela Schwartzman. I'm the Marketing Relationship Manager at BayWa. Thank you so much for joining us today. While we are waiting for everyone to log on, I'll just take some time for housekeeping. Get yourself familiar, please, with the Zoom platform. There is a very important button at the bottom, which is the Q&A button. So if you have any questions, please share them in the Q&A sections along with your comments. I will be monitoring that throughout the webinar and ask our experts any of those questions. They're here for you. So make sure you take advantage of that. I am super excited to be joined today by Ryan Adams. He's the Director of Business Development at Silfab, and we'll be learning about how Silfab contributes to domestic content, how the panels stack up against foreign panels, and much more. And we have, as I mentioned, we have a special guest appearance today from Mark Abrams. He is the head of inverter sales at Tesla, and he'll be sharing and talking about readily available domestic content solutions for companies like Sonova Energy. But first, here are a few things you might want to know about working with us here at BayWa and why you can benefit from our partnership. There are many benefits that you have by working with us. So partnering with BayWa, America's preferred solar energy equipment distributor, you can make your business much more successful. On this slide, you will see a few ways how you can benefit from the collaboration and support your goals. Forecasting is one of the special offers that we provide you. Forecasting can make your business more efficient and secure your supply. And that helps you to grow your business through accurate forecasting, and that helps you to better service your homeowners effectively and efficiently. Our dedicated sales representatives are here for you. So you have always someone in your corner and available to answer any questions or assist you with anything solar, storage, and energy management. Our easy-to-use web store allows you access to up-to-date pricing and immediate ordering through a one-stop shop web store platform. And we also developed and expanded heavily on our commercial services. So you can plan your commercial products and projects and conduct accurate product inventory forecasting alongside industry experts. And that includes our expert services desk. You can call anytime and get direct assistance with commercial design, planning, and more. Also, you can enjoy consistent pricing across all warehouses in the United States and no varying fees are involved here. Those locations are conveniently located to service installers like you across 50 states. And I'm super excited to let you know we just opened our doors for our newest location in Las Vegas yesterday. So make sure you check that out. And lastly, we offer you, and you can take advantage of the capability of delivering directly to your job and construction site. So there's no middle warehouse required. If you are a US-based solar installer or not just a customer yet, you can check out the links. We just posted them in our chat. You can learn more about how we work and how you can benefit. And then there's also a way to get in touch with us, and we will reach out to you. All right. Now, without further ado, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Mark and Ryan. Ryan, take it away.
Appreciate it. Let's see if I can share my screen here. There, hope everyone can see. Perfect. All right. Well, yeah, as Danielle has introduced, I am Ryan Adams. If we have not met in the past, Director of Business Development at Silfab. I've been here 6 or 7 years, and prior to that, on the inverter side, utility scale development and distribution side. So 16, 17 lovely years in solar on the coaster, enjoying every minute of it. Today, my honor to be able to kind of talk about a little bit of the Silfab background, a little bit of the future, what we're moving towards as far as technology, bricks and mortar, resources in the US, also a little bit on the domestic content, where I imagine there will be some questions. And then working with Tesla and Mark Abrams on some of the pairings that can be made in the domestic content space and the IRA, and then hopefully leaving some time at the end for questions and anything that we don't cover adequately for your liking. So let's jump into it here. The first thing we're going to start with is really a poll to kind of say, how much are we starting with here as far as Silfab knowledge? How much do you know about our organization, our product, where we're coming from, where we're going to?
All right. Awesome. So, what level of Silfab knowledge do you have? Very little, enough to be dangerous, or I feel like I'm an expert. So, everybody, please chime in. That will help us and help you to guide the webinar along. Enough to be dangerous.
Most in the
That's
middle.
great. How do
Or,
you, yeah. So, how do you define enough to be dangerous?
I don't know, but hopefully we're going to get more people from the middle category to the expert category in the next 30 or 40 minutes.
That's a great goal for this webinar. Yeah, please use the
All right.
Q&A section and share with us anything you'd like to know. All right, so 60%, I'm going to share the results. You should be able to see them. 60% say enough to be dangerous. And we, as you heard, Ryan's goal is to move you to experts after this webinar. 47% are experts and very little. So this gives you a perfect playground. Ryan,
Sounds good.
take it away. Thank you,
Perfect.
everyone.
Well, so let's start on kind of the where we've come from and what we've built, really. So the Silfab lineage of companies has been around for over 40 years. The humble beginnings of the Silfab lineage of companies is Franco Traverso and the Spitic family, SAS, a group of companies that have been in PV supply chain since the early 80s. They were the initial investors into Silfab Americas in 2010. And they are still major board members today and decision makers in the process. But since that point on, as you can see, the top, the top right blue is Toronto, Canada. So that's the initial facility in 2010 that's been operational 24/7 for the last 15 years, building modules in Canada for the North American market. In about 2017, 2018, we took possession of another facility in Bellingham, Washington, doubled the capacity of that. And about a year later, took possession of another facility about 45 minutes south of there in Burlington, Washington, and have been adding to that ever since. And so those were the two initial hubs of manufacturing capacity. We have built out from that point all internal, R&D, finance, sales support service, all the manufacturing, all the logistics, all the engineering is all local, domestic. 100% of all decisions are made here, and then you still do have these two individuals that were the original investors, and their group of companies that are on the board. So you're kind of a wholly domestic owned and operated panel manufacturing company with 40 years experience on the board coming from international PV supply chain. The big piece for us that's I'm sure you've read about or heard about a little bit is the bottom right-hand side. You'll see the big red circle in South Carolina. So Fort Mill, South Carolina is the next in the addition of the bricks and mortar resources for us. That is a 900,000 square foot facility that is designed to house several gigawatts of cell production and additional module capacity. So we're already sitting on about 1.5 gigawatts of nameplate module capacity between the Toronto facility and the Burlington facility. And even that Toronto equipment is actually being moved south of the border as we speak, so that it is all US made in 2025. But we're also then adding a large plant to the lineup in South Carolina. So there's about 1,000 employees today. That additional plant requires another 800. So the company needs to kind of double in size as far as the American workforce and the square footage of nameplate PV supply chain side of things. Right? So we are a pure play panel manufacturer. We do not have EPC services. We do not have competing against you. We do not have development wings. We do not have distribution. We do not make inverters, period. Our entire business MO is to be a large, profitable, sustainable panel manufacturer who's a partner with everyone and competitors of none. And so that is what the entire business model is based off of. And we will continue along those paths because that is what has got us to this point today. So I'm just going to click these. So a little bit of the why Silfab, what differentiates us from for the rest of the pack, right? The financial stability has been a big piece. We make sound fiscal decisions. Strangely enough, in the solar space, there are groups that do that. So just-in-time manufacturing, right? We don't build large volumes and sit on it and then do fire sales. All of our modules go out the door. We are a profitable group. The entire empire has been built on retained earnings without any debt in the company, right? That's a lot to be said compared to some of our competitors out there. And what that represents then is, we have unlimited access to all of the AVLs. We've been, approved on major government buildings, military buildings, sports stadiums, et cetera, et cetera. When you operate a sound, fiscally responsible business and grow year after year and show that sustained growth, it's amazing how easy it is to continue to grow and partner with sustainable groups. The innovation side of things, we cannot fall behind, right? So we are competing. We are David versus Goliath. I've always loved that battle. We are competing against large overseas groups with large parents in ancillary businesses. Yet here we are with our R&D team based here, winning accolades through third-party IEs and testing laboratories, staying ahead of the curve on technologies and efficiencies, degradation rates, all of that type of stuff. You look at our modules versus others in the industry, and we're at or above the standards and operational characteristics of most of the products out there. And that's a testament to our team and our concentration on simply being a little bit better. We can't fall into the category of large volume, low quality, low efficiency type of offshore manufacturing. The Silfab model doesn't work that way. For us, it's providing a differentiated offering, a value stack that's different than our competitors, and part of that's through the R&D side of things. The ethical supply chain, it saddens me, I guess, that we need legislation to tell us not to use forced labor and to use unscrupulous supply chain tactics, but here we are. Again, the Silfab MO has always been, being green in green and being ethical and having a strong ESG platform, which I'll talk about in the next slide. That's always been our MO. That's the way the business was built. It costs a little bit more to do business that way, but we all go home and sleep comfortably at night and recognize, our partners recognize that difference in our business. And then the manufacturing side of things, you have to be very efficient with very low defect rates to compete in this market at the premium space that we're in, right? So having high levels of automation, ISO certified facilities, very low PPM defect rates has always allowed us, again, to kind of stand head and shoulders above most of our competitors. And that's the type of product and differentiation that we strive to provide.
Brian, I have a couple
Yes.
questions for you. One is more like on a general level and one on a product specific level. So there's a question, why did you shut down the Bellingham factory? And is it empty now? That's one. And the other one is a question about your products. Are your panels inverter agnostic?
So the Bellingham facility, we moved all of that equipment to Burlington, and we're able to amalgamate resources in places there. So we are no longer using that Bellingham facility. It was a very odd shape. It was not big enough to expand. It had a bunch of limitations operationally, not to mention labor force. If you know Bellingham, Washington, it's not the right type of market to have accessible, technical engineering, high expertise type of technical work. So being closer to Seattle was a much better location, and we had the extra space in the Burlington facility. So all equipment has then been moved into the Burlington facility. On the product side of things, we may be able to touch a bit more on that when we get into the product piece. But the question was, what about inverter compatibility? Or
Agnostic, yeah. Whether you're inverter agnostic, but yeah.
yes. So I mean, there's obviously pairings with MLPE that's can be calculated through Enphase and SolarEdge's design tools. And as far as stringing capabilities, that obviously depends on the individual string inverter itself and temperature thresholds. But maybe we can get a bit more into that on the product side of things. The domestic side of things.
Sounds good. There's a couple more questions on this generic level, if you allow me. So we saw like some of your distribution locations, and the question was, can you be more specific? Are these distribution partnerships in those locations, or are these clients you've supplied? And then another question regarding the move out of Canada, what activities will remain in Toronto?
So the distribution, those dots are the physical locations of our existing distribution partners. We have very few distribution partners, of which BayWa being one of the prominent ones. Those are physical locations of warehouses of our distribution partners. What will remain? Well, I will remain in Toronto. I live about an hour north of our facility. We will continue to have some of our financial structure, some of our sales and marketing. So the resources that are here will remain here, but the manufacturing will be less and less.
Thank you.
So domestic. Why domestic? I think there's a few things that are quite obvious and are kind of thrown in your face on a day-to-day basis. But so I won't beat a dead horse, but certainly worth noting, right? Because we do differentiate from most. The anti-circumvention piece, right? The AD/CVD. There's now 2 petitions in place. Everything coming from those 4 countries are now under a high level of scrutiny at different tariff rates. There is all sorts of U.S. administration attention to that matter, and that's because there's been unfair business practices taking place there. None of it applies to us. We get to continue to stand above the rest. Is that with a clean and ethical supply chain that we've had multiple sources for all of our components and assembling 100% of all of the modules here. So UFLPA, we have had a large process in place, stringent process in place for the forced labor side of things. We're happy to share what that process is. We work with all of our partners very closely, and all of those AVLs that we're on, for both residential TPOs, plus commercial funding, etc., all require a deep dive into that side of our business, and we proudly stand behind all that we do on that side of things. The IRA, of course, incentivizes that domestic manufacturing and domestic supply chain side of things, and we are leading the charge. We'll go into that a little bit more, and Mark will help explain some of that. The sustainability piece too. I think you got to realize that just being here, it allows an installer to provide the kind of the warm and fuzzies to the American, Jane and John Smith, American homeowner, right? To know that it's American labor, an American company, and American parts, etc. But there's also, you got to realize, different environmental standards, different carbon CO2 per panel produced standards. There's a lot of things that building in the US with higher levels of quality and higher levels of non-oil and gas energy, et cetera, changes the composition of the makeup of what goes into that module, right? So I think we're going to touch on a few more of these in the next couple slides. So I will get past that.
Sorry, Ryan, to interrupt. Are all components manufactured in the US as well, is a question.
No. So there has been no domestic manufacturing of raw components for the last 10, 15 years. Very, very, very limited. Those that do assemble here have been using products from offshore. There has been no cell production in the US. There is still no glass production. We've been able to move forward with several of the BOM components in the near term. There's a slide on that. But this stuff has not been built here. The IRA is a major step forth in bringing a sustainable supply chain manufacturing infrastructure into the US. And so we're celebrating that and pushing forward with any of the partners that we can source and supply from in the US. So more and more components, basically everything can be available next year. Glass is still that one issue that no one can solve on the poly side of things. First Solar being the only one that actually has glass production in the US. We're still probably a bit out on that glass side of things, but everything else can be. So the ESG side of things, right? The environmental standards here are just completely different. As I said, our MO being be green in green, right? You can use a horrifically oil and gas laden electrical grid to produce a panel and then dispose of all your raw materials unethically into the river behind the plant, right? There's really bad ways to make solar panels. Again, it's unfortunate that occurs, but these are the realities of some of the manufacturing capacity around the world. In our sense, manufacturing on very, very low carbon grids with a lot of with the environmental standards of a North American context, with recycling programs and partnerships in place, et cetera, puts us again head and shoulders above many of our competitors. In the social and good governance side of things, again, a North American owned and operated company, abiding by accounting practices of accepted North American accounting practices, to have 1,000 North American employees, all making a living wage, et cetera, et cetera. Again, stands considerably different from many of our overseas competitors. And we have lots of scope 1 and scope 2 goals. We have an entire report on ESG. We're going to get caught up in time here if we get too far into it. But if you are interested more in that side of things, obviously just here as a speaking point, but we have an entire ESG report every year that's updated, our targets, our achievements, et cetera. So please do reach out and we can send that along. So let's get into the nitty-gritty part here of infrastructure and domestic content, and get our friend Mark Abrams on the Tesla side of things to speak a little bit as well. So this is the South Carolina Fort Mill. It's on the southern side of Charlotte. It is a 900,000 square foot facility, capable of running several lots of cells and another 1.2 gigs of module assembly. So equipment is landing. Some of the module assembly capacity is already there. Some of the cell manufacturing equipment is already landing there to be operational by end of year and producing cells throughout 2025. We are where PERC was a standard technology for the last 8-10 years. PERC has really died off, right? The PERC supply globally has shrunk considerably to somewhere around 15-ish% of global wafer supply is now P-type PERC. So this plant is going to be producing N-type, right? And we'll get into N-type a little bit more, but there's no reason for us in our minds to build a plant that produces old technology, right? So this is M10 wafer size, building N-type cells with all the bells and whistles that go along with that technology. And that is the building block for our residential, commercial, and utility scale modules. So this plant is being built as we speak to be operational. The cell side of things, producing cells in Q1. All of those cells are spoken for in the interim period, but we are certainly, as that capacity grows, engaging with additional partners for that allocation. And so that kind of takes me to, there's a bit more on domestic content that we'll get into, I'm sure, but it takes me to kind of the second poll, just to kind of understand from everyone that's on the call, what is your understanding? What is your level of interest in domestic content for next year?
Awesome. So everyone, this question is for you. Do you plan to pursue 45% domestic content for your projects in 2025? You have now an opportunity to just participate. If we launch the poll, there it is. So yes, no, or unsure. Seems like the majority, keep voting. The majority seems to plan for 45% domestic content, but there's also a number of people who are unsure yet. So that would be interesting to hear from you guys. Are you unsure because you still like to have more knowledge about it, or not, just simply not decided yet? You can share that with us in the Q&A. All right, it looks like we have no more movement. Oh, a little more. But yeah, Ryan, can you maybe comment on this result?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I expected, I believe, that it's certainly of interest because there's a large financial ramification to being able to comply with domestic content rules under the IRA. And I think maybe some of the yeses probably also may fall into the unsure, because there is still some confusion. There's still some interpretation to be done. And that's why we'll get a little bit more into that in the next couple of slides. And Mark's going to jump in because both of our companies are working towards certain aspects of this legislation, and we'll be able to help along the way. So I think I will pass it over to Mr. Abrams here to do a quick overview on domestic content and the Tesla piece.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Daniela. Great to be here. This is not meant to be the end-all be-all tutorial on domestic content. There is tremendous amount of information, but it is meant to summarize and tell us why we're here today and the great opportunity we have together to solve for it and enable the tax credit. So what exactly is it? Many of you may know. It's been driven by the IRA. It's another 10% tax credit when using equipment that qualifies on leases or PPAs specifically. I will, of course, put in the official disclaimer. We are not tax accountants or lawyers at Tesla. This is our interpretation. And I think the ultimate point here will become very clear. This tax credit can only be claimed, as far as we understand it, by a third-party owner. So it's typically a solar leasing company. This is not for loans or cash. If you're out selling loans or cash and think you can buy domestic content and provide a homeowner another 10%, I'm not aware that that is the case. You should definitely talk to your accountants. And the way to know that there is a domestic content opportunity is it will be called out specifically on the TPO, or the third-party owner's AVLs, which is their approved vendor list. And it will tell you exactly which equipment combinations can get the correct domestic content, so the system qualifies for the additional 10%. So I think, what we're seeing and hearing from the industry is a lot of these third-party owner companies are going to be requiring it, or maybe offering different incentives to do it. Everybody's still learning a lot about this and figuring it out. It is very notable, though, that Sunnova has evaluated this and currently lists this solution, a Tesla paired with Silfab solution, on their AVL for Sunnova dealers. And to do this, they will pair us with certain racking and in this case specifically the Silfab module. And I think that's very exciting. That's the big news for all of you today, that if you are a Sunnova dealer or you're looking to become one and you want to comply with domestic content, you can indeed pair a Tesla inverter, our standard inverter, with the Silfab module and various racking companies to meet this requirement, and to do so very cost effectively. So we're really excited about that. I do expect more TPOs to evaluate and start to roll this out in the coming months. And this is very specifically, today I'm talking about the Tesla solar inverter, but Powerwall 3 has its own criteria. Here again, this is to be notified by each TPO. And again, the Powerwall 3 is on the Sunnova AVL today. So good news on all fronts there from Tesla. Next slide, please. We're really excited about this, and this is why we're here today, because partnering Tesla with Silfab, it gives you the lowest cost stack to achieve domestic content. And I think that's the big news that you can take away from this. If you're looking for a way to comply with Sunnova, or if you have another TPO that's asking, this is a great, extremely cost-effective way to do it, to maximize the ability to take advantage of that extra 10% wherever in the cost stack that shows up. So this is great. It's our standard inverter. It's available in stock at BayWa today. It's the product that's been gaining tremendous market share. It's the Tesla string inverter, as shown here. So we're very excited about this. We didn't have to do anything special. It's not a special part number. It's not a special SKU. It doesn't have a different price, same price. It's a standard Tesla inverter. So that's part of the reason we can be so cost effective in this solution. You do need to combine it with domestic content racking. Again, here, look to your TPO, your third-party owner's AVL. You do need to pair it with racking and the module in order to get there. Two of the leading manufacturers that BayWa carries today, Iron Ridge and Unirac, have this orderable. So you can buy this product today and get domestic content racking. It does need to be the complete rail and fastener production solutions of this racking. So be very clear on that. Again, per the TPO AVL combinations. And here's the Silfab module. And so anyway, this is the actual link to the module that we've been talking about. All the products available. We're just waiting on the exact date here. I don't know if Ryan, if we have the date here. Sorry, this is a reminder point here on when these will be available and the racking lead times. All of this you want to get from BayWa. I think that was the call out for this slide, is that if you're looking for when the Silfab modules will be landed, like late October, early November is hopeful dates, and same with the racking lead times, please contact BayWa and they will be able to get you all of that product. So super excited about this. I think it's there's been a lot of talk about how to comply and what complies, and we're really delighted to be here with what we think is a very cost-effective, very high quality. You've got great brands, great products like Silfab, as Ryan's telling you all about, the origin of the company and the quality of their modules, and of course BayWa is our partner to deliver it. So anyway, very excited about this. Thanks for the opportunity, and look forward if there's any questions. And with that, back to you, Ryan.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and so this specific, and we'll get into the panel side of things and the suffix on the back that denotes the domestic content, BayWa will have in stock by second or third week of October. So.
That's all super exciting. Thank you so much, Mark, for sharing this. And there have been a couple of comments in the Q&A section. I just wanted to share. It's probably more for you, Ryan. Like we had this poll question of whether or not our installers are planning for the 45% for next year, and I invited everyone to share what the unsure is. So. Simply undecided is like one end of the spectrum, but also unsure because they're still in a guidance phase and it's not clear whether the 45% is actually achievable. Then there are some requests for solid documentation from module manufacturers on the DC content, so the visibility into the supply chain. So just to share this here, where our installers, what they're thinking of going into 2025. So I don't know whether you have any comments there.
No, sounds good. I mean, there is a bit of uncertainty everywhere, and I think that's where we can hopefully provide a bit of more clarity and the framework behind what's happening and the pairings that are possible, and some of the current opportunities with the TPOs and commercial installations and what may be coming in the future. So there's a bit more in the deck about this specifically on timing and components that are domestic. So hopefully we can make a few more of the unsure over onto the yes side of things and answer a few questions.
I just want to jump in on that real quick because there's a lot of confusion. People are always asking me for the documentation. And the answer is we don't provide the documentation to the installer. The TPO is taking the responsibility, and the TPO is the one validating the combinations and the products. And so you would actually be looking to your TPO provider to give you an AVL, like I mentioned in this slide, to tell you what products work to be financed with their solutions. So it's just I get this almost daily, and I want to really reiterate that point from my prior slide because sometimes that's people think they are obligated to gather and prepare and provide that documentation, and that is not our understanding.
Yeah, there is another question for you, Mark. According to the IRS safe harbor rules, what is the domestic percentage of the Tesla inverter? And I believe there is a follow-up comment. I'm only interested in getting the 10% domestic adder. We are doing nothing without it. Would you respond to that question, please?
Yeah. So here again, it's all about the TPO AVL, and letting them know what that content is. In the end, they have to vouch for it and make those combinations. So we aren't providing percentages out. It doesn't matter. What matters is what works for that you can take a combination of our inverter with the racking with this Silfab module and achieve it. And that's, for the TPO AVL right now. And these things are going to keep changing and evolving as the numbers change, as the whole thing evolves next year in the IRA. But for now, right now, the known truth is that you can do this with Sonova. You can do it right now. It's on the AVL, and you can meet their requirements very cost effectively with us in Silfab. And stay tuned. There's a lot more to come on this, I imagine, over the next months.
Russ is following up on this, saying there's no uncertainty with the IRS safe harbor rules. There's certain, just like Enphase, Tesla needs to have a reliance letter. Would you respond to that?
Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant. I don't believe that's true. Actually, I believe that the TPO needs the reliance letter. And the TPO makes that assessment, and the TPO is the one who's going to claim that 10%. If people are doing this with homeowners, with loans and cash, like I mentioned, I'm not an expert. I don't believe that's correct. I believe it has my understanding is that if the TPO needs to do this. So I think there's a lot of confusion by the reliance letters going out to people who shouldn't have ever needed them or now think they do. So at least our understanding is we provide the TPO certifies, and that's how we're working it.
There is a question for you both. Are Silfab Prime 430 watts compatible with the Tesla MCIs and RSDs?
Yes. So specifically the MCI 1 in particular because of the high ISC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a couple more questions regarding commercial, Ryan, but I can hold on to this if you want to dig a little bit deeper into your product line.
Yeah, we're going to cover over the next 3 or 4 slides all the modules that are available through next year, and may answer some of the questions. If not, let's stop after that and we'll go through them again.
Thanks.
Perfect. Okay, so Silfab tries to keep it fairly simple in our breakdown of what we build. So Silfab Prime and Silfab Elite are our residential lines. Silfab Prime has now moved over to the N-type module or N-type cell. Silfab Elite is our back contact technology. So you can obviously see the aesthetic differences between the two very different technologies, two different cell technologies. But what's important to understand is that both of them are at the very high end of all efficiencies and technologies that are in the market today, with 22% plus efficiencies, et cetera. So we differentiate by always having a superior technology opportunity. And then Silfab Commercial, and you could probably even say it's into Silfab Utility with some of the sizes of the modules that are coming out, is also N-type with the same M10 sized wafer as far as the building block. What you'll notice obviously is white backsheet and silver frame. So there are distinctions between these categories, and we'll touch base on each one of these. But I think what's that doesn't go want it to. The thing that's the same that we put all of them through is the rigorous testing, right? So again, for us to continue to differentiate and show our worth on the R&D side of things and the technology innovation side of things, we continue to throw all of our stuff. We beat the living crap out of it. Then we, advanced life cycle testing, all the chambers that we have in our facility, and then we need to put it through PVAL or RETC, third-party nationally recognized laboratories, in all of the testing that they do. And we continue to end up on the top performer list on both of those ratings year after year after year, every module that we put into them. And really, that's the heart behind building a panel that's going to stand up to Mother Nature for the next 20 or 30 years and produce the power that the warrantable conditions cover, right? So a big part of it for us is making sure that we can stand up to even the largest of multinational panel manufacturers. We're right up there with them, and in many cases exceeding. So Silfab Prime. So this is the larger volume, the bulk volume of our residential production today. It's about 80-20 to the Silfab Elite. This moved over from a P-type module in 2024. In 2023 and 2024 has been N-type this year. That N-type, that change to N-type has allowed this module, as you can see on the right here, to jump to 22% efficiency. That is an efficiency that was typically reserved for SunPower, Maxion, the stuff that was $1 a watt a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. We're now able to match in our standard regular production. We're able to match efficiencies that you used to see from some of those manufacturers, LG and et cetera. This is a M10 wafer. So the modules have, over the last kind of 6 to 12 months, have gone from, they've shrunk by 6 or 7 inches in length, and they've got about 4 inches wider. So just to note, if you're still using any M6 P-type, there's a 1 or 2 still in the market. They would be a 40-inch wide module. This is a 44-inch wide module. This boasts a 25-year product warranty and a 30-year performance warranty at 0.3%, right? So our standard module now has a warranty, again, that you would have a year or two ago seen with only the most premium modules in the market that cost you $1 a watt. It is now on the market as the standard. These are built in both the Burlington facility and Toronto, but the Toronto facility, as I said, most of that equipment is going south of the border and will be all US assembled. So in 2025, you will not even be able to buy a Canadian version. Not that the Canadian version's bad, but I know some people like to sell only made in America, and that will be that case. This will also run to a 440 sometime into the end of Q2 timeframe next year. Still looking at the exact timeframe, but we only have 10-watt bin classes, so we will not do a 425, 430, 435. That's a pain in the butt for us. It's a pain in the butt for our distribution partners. It's a pain in the butt for installers because you have to switch your designs twice as often, right? So we want 10-watt power classes, positive tolerance. So this will go to a 440 in the next 6 to 9 months. The Silfab Elite we have been running, it's called metal wrap through. So it's got a copper backsheet and no front side bussing or stringing. So this is about our 4th generation of this product, proprietary back contact cell, as you can see. The aesthetics are completely different. It is also up at 42% efficiency. Now this is an M6 wafer. So this is still 40 inches wide and a little bit longer. So for those that actually still appreciate that design side of things, with a narrower, longer module. We will continue to build these into 2025 as well. Slightly different technology, obviously, achieving similar results. And again, 25-year product warranty, 30-year performance at 0.3%. And obviously, the aesthetics are superior and that there is no front side bussing. It looks completely different. There's a picture a little bit later on in the presentation. And because there is a copper layer in the back sheet, it actually operates 3 to 4 degrees cooler in the same environment as a conventional black backsheet module, right? And there's an inverse relationship between temperature and production or efficiencies. Therefore, if you can operate at a cooler temperature, you produce more power. So lots of positive operational attributes of Silfab Elite. So those are the 2 residential modules that you will buy over the next kind of 6 months. Moving into Silfab Commercial, right now we are building and producing the 520. QM was a monofacial, is now done and sold out. So we are all onto the 520 XM, which is a bifacial version, and that will move also to a 530 in the Q1 timeframe. We will get all the details out exactly so that BayWa can tell you exactly when to make that transition. But here is a American assembled N-type commercial module with, again, a 25-year product warranty and 30-year performance with a degradation rate of 0.3%. There's very little on the market that can boast all of those attributes, right? So American assembly, but also ownership, a domestically owned company, right? So this module really, in talking to business owners, you can offer a very different value stack than just saying it's a pretty good module. It's built overseas. It's a great price point. This has the technology. It has the corporate ownership. It has the domestic assembly. It has a better warranty, higher efficiency, etc. So I think this should be a great offering for kind of that rooftop and small ground mount applications. And this is, again, the same cell that we're using in residential and our utility side, and it was the same cell that we were building in South Carolina facility. Therefore, we will be building this module throughout 2025. So, if you've got a project that kind of pushes out for 6 to 12 months, you will still be able to buy this footprint in the latter half of next year.
Yeah, can I jump in here before you
sure
move
can.
on with the commercial? There are a bunch of commercial questions here. So maybe similar, yeah. My understanding is that while a TPO is required for residential, it's not required for commercial. We are pitching a 10% adder for commercial. Please comment, and will Silfab be issuing IRS letters? And I think there's a similar question for commercial. Can the owner take the 10% domestic content, or that only third party via PPA as well?
So again, as Mark said, we are not tax accountants or lawyers, but the understanding is that it has to be a commercial transaction, commercial ownership, right? And so a TPO in residential is commercially owned. If this is a business that is installing this commercial PV application, then that business would be able to take that additional 10% ITC. Where it gets a bit murky is if it was a 3-phase commercial install on a building, but it's owned by an individual. I think you're starting to kind of blur the lines, because now you're a individual who is installing a commercial system. I think that would fall under the kind of, it's just a large cash or loan residential system, but it's 3-phase and it's using commercial modules on a commercial building. So again, that's a bit of a gray area that I'm not sure, but certainly commercial applications commercial ownership is also covered under our understanding, covered under the IRA legislation.
Yes. So, yeah, at this point, I also want to make a reminder that this is not a legal session. So you will have to talk to your tax advisors, but Silfab and Tesla providing the solution that could meet these requirements. There is another question for you: when and where the Silfab commercial panels available? For pricing, you can, of course, reach out to us.
BayWa.
Yep. And is there a 10% adder also for NGOs or municipal?
And so I've actually got in 2 slides the distinction of domestic and non-domestic modules. So the next module up in size here is just an extra row of cells, or two row of half cells. Same width, again, 44.5 inches. Same warranty, 25 product, 30-year performance, etc. Same high efficiency, same US assembly, same all of that. All of our lines are based, our production lines are based on that M10 N-type wafer. So from our residential prime all the way up through the 530 to the 570, 580 is that same building block. Therefore, can be run on all of our lines and will be all built in our US facilities. A handful of examples of commercial applications over the last couple of years from Silfab modules. This part is maybe will help answer some questions. So we assemble all of these modules today in our US plants with non-domestic components. Some domestic components, some non-domestic, but it's a rounding error on the domestic side in some cases. So because we're using a common M10 sized N-type wafer on all of these modules, the 430 QD, then the 520, 530, 580, and then a 630 I didn't even show you because this is kind of larger utility, but we will be building that the latter half of next year as well. We assemble with non-domestic components. So let's call that US assembly, non-domestic BOM. Then we have what's called DCA. There's nothing surprising or overly intelligent about that. This is domestic content version A. And that version A, we're building today on the 430 version that you see at the top of the page for the Tesla pairing on TPOs. That has a handful of BOM components, not US cells, but that gets up over that 40% this year for IRA compliance, right? In 2025, again, residential and commercial, having that DCA version getting you, 7 to 12%, whatever, depending on what type of project. It's up to you to review the safe harbor tables and make the assertion based on the inverter type and the application type. That DCA version may be useful for you in pairing with either domestic inverters and non-domestic racking, or domestic racking, non-domestic inverters, but there's a pairing that can be made to get you to that threshold. We are also, Silfab is at the tip of the spear as far as building out domestic cell production in the US, right? So we are a couple $100 million into that cell plant, building N-type cells next year and 2026 and 27 onwards. That would be called our DCB version, which is then, including the frame, the backsheet, the EVA, etc., but also having domestic cell. Under the current elective safe harbor tables, that module, that DCB version, would get most ground mount projects and even almost I think a string rooftop project almost over that threshold on its own. It's kind of a choose your own adventure, I guess, a little bit, where you need to look at what you're using on the inverter and the racking side and decide what application best suits. But just know that we assemble stuff without the US assembly all day, every day. That's what we've been doing for the last 15 years in our US plants. With appropriate lead time and additional price, because it costs more to source these raw materials from US suppliers versus suppliers from overseas, we can provide these two variations and maybe there will be in the future as we find what fits particular applications better. There may be another version, but right now we have a reliance letter that we've provided to the TPOs, as Mark suggests, and then also, I guess, for commercial development, for the entity that would be filing that claim, they can look at what the DCA and DCB version includes, and then it's up to your accounting and legal counsel to determine what that means in your project in combination with the other components. I will stop there because there may be some questions.
No, actually, the coast is clear. If you want to.
Oh,
hang on. There's a question that comes in right now. That's a question related to racking. I don't know whether what should you look for when sourcing a racking supplier? Everything, or will just rails comply?
See, this is the choose your own adventure, right? This is where if you use just the rail and
so
some
I can
inverter
jump
and
in
some
on
module.
That. Yeah, on with the Tesla string inverter, you'll need the rail and the fastener. To Ryan's point, There are mix and match ratios in the tables. Work with your TPO provider. And again, that's a residential comment. I know there's some folks looking for commercial. That's a whole different conversation, of course.
Yeah, and I am going to, now that we've used too much time, sorry, I'm going to flip through some Elite here because I want to just do 2 slides on a good image of the Elite. But I know BayWa's majority of their warehouses have the Prime. So what is the difference between P-type and N-type? I think this is maybe just the last 2 slides here, and hopefully then we can leave 6-7 minutes for some more questions. P-type is a positively charged cell that's been predominant P-type PERC for the last 8, 10, 15 years. It's met a efficiency threshold. It's kind of got up to a point, right? So the last one we built is a 410. I think you'll see some 410s residentially in the market. You're going to struggle to even get to 415. I don't think 420 is even possible, given that size footprint, right? Because everyone's tweaked and maneuvered the P-type technology to a point where it's kind of met its efficiency max, or pretty close to. And part of the reason is there's called a passivization layer. So it's basically taking those charge carriers through the passivization layer so that it can then be conveyed along the conveyance network to the junction box. A P-type module actually has physical holes. So those charge carriers, so picture traffic, picture a highway. There's a certain number of cars trying to go down a highway. You can only go to a certain speed because there's a certain number of cars in front of you. That's kind of why P-type PERC has met its operational efficiency peak. The N-type side of things, a negatively charged wafer technology, the passivization layer is actually, so charge carriers actually can go through that passivization layer a lot faster. And so your bottleneck is not this physical hole in the passivization layer, but it's actually just the amount of sunshine that's incident upon that glass. So this is kind of the best way that we could kind of come up with to explain the difference between these technologies and why. So we jumped from a 20.7% efficient module on the P-type, and we're now a 22% efficient module 6 months later on N-type. So there's a 1.3% efficiency gain on that module, 22.1, 1.8 that you were gained just by going from P-type to N-type. And N-type wafer and cell production globally has kind of taken over. It's 75 to 80 some odd % of the global supply chain now. And so the pricing is very comparable to what P-type used to be. And so hence why we pivot very quickly, get to the newest technology so we can offer our partners, the best of technology that's out there to get more on the roof.
On that note, Ryan, will you have any PERC modules available in 2025?
We do not make any PERC. We have N-type and back contact. And my last 2 slides, just what does that do? Packs more on the roof, right? Same square footage, packs 12% more power on the exact same, same racking utilization, and you're getting more power onto every roof, same truck roll. Another big piece is the degradation rate, right? So we went from 0.55, 0.6% on PERC, pretty average. Ours is at 0.3% now on N-type. So you're really cutting that degradation, that annual degradation in half, which over 25, 30-year lifespan is a considerable amount of power. And then the last part is temperature coefficients. N-type negatively charged cells have a better temperature coefficient. Therefore, modules sitting on a black asphalt roof getting very, very hot in sunshine, you lose efficiency with heat. And with an N-type cell, you actually have a better temperature coefficient, therefore producing more power long term. So I will leave it there, and hopefully we've got 5 minutes. We've got a little bit of time to spare to answer anything else that hasn't been addressed.
Yeah, I appreciate you going through the last couple of slides, despite the fact that we are running a little bit out of time. But if you talk about the degradation, what's the warrantable degradation rate on your modules?
0.3% on all of our modules now, from residential to commercial to utility. All of them have a standard 30-year performance warranty with 0.3% degradation. So if you're modeling that out on a residential or commercial even system, you're looking at the LCOE of a system, having that additional efficiency on the roof, having the additional production because of lack of degradation and temperature coefficients. You model a 1 megawatt block of PERC versus a 1 megawatt block of N-type, you're going to see a material difference in production over the lifespan of that project.
Sounds good. So we have maybe a couple more minutes, time for some more questions. If you want to use the Q&A, this is a really good time to do it. I would like to, like in the meantime, maybe the question to both of you, if somebody, like with all of what we learned today with the product innovation and the domestic content adder, what are some of the recommendations you would like to give to our installers? What should they look for? What steps? What kind of challenges should they look out for?
Well, Mark, take that one.
My pleasure. So I think it's really important to understand what the TPO is looking for. I think, and again, I'm talking to residential. There's been a lot of discussion about this topic, but ultimately, because they are claiming that credit, they are the ones who have to do the diligence and feel confident in the products that will meet it, so that they can, claim the credit correctly. So I think that's where I look to. We as the manufacturer work very hard to, ensure we're qualified with the TPOs on this. And I think what's been interesting and exciting and new about in this webinar is what we've gone a different way. We said use the existing string inverter, because our string inverter architecture is so cost effective and the technology is so good now, and pair it with an excellent module. Silfab, you've heard all about it today, and because of the domestic content, you can meet it that way. And it's a little different than I think what some of the initial feelings were out of the industry. So work with your TPO, check your AVLs, and make sure you've got it all cleared up, and then you're in great shape to go take advantage of this exciting opportunity.
Thank you. That's awesome. Ryan, anything to add on this?
Just to clarify, the current pairing that is a DCA version of the 430, which is what BayWa will have in their warehouse in the next couple of weeks. So that DCA version of the 430 QD paired with the Tesla string inverter and the appropriate racking. And Sonova says good to go, and quite a few other TPOs that are working in that direction as we speak.
Yeah, there are some questions about what we will have by when, carrying the Silfab 520QM DCA before the end of 2024, Ryan. And also there's a question about price and availability of the Silfab panel with domestic cells for each size, 410 watts and 580 watts.
So on the commercial side of things, we are really done with the QM production. So the XM, it'll be the 530 XM next year. So that's the same physical footprint, but bifacial backsheet, textured patterned backsheet. And the DCA version would be available about mid Q1.
That's awesome.
Second question. My apologies.
The second question was price and availability. So pricing, yes, please reach out to our BayWa team. Availability of the Silfab panel with domestic cells for each size, 410 and 580 watts.
So the DCA version, because it doesn't require the cell, is a little bit easier, right? With ample lead time, BayWa's lead time, but it takes us 3 or 4 months to order our raw materials. Therefore, we need to know how much domestic material we're using versus non-domestic, 3-4 months in advance. The DCB version is a bit more difficult to answer exactly, because we will have a finite amount of cell production next year. Much of it is spoken for already, deposits placed this year for large volumes next year. If you do believe you're interested in sourcing product with DCB, with the cells and the full shooting gallery as far as domestic material, let's have a discussion about what that volume is, what that time frame is. But it's certainly looking, at this point, availability would be second half of next year, and would require some very, very long planning given the demand of that cell plant.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your questions. Please reach out to us if you have more questions. We are happy to put you in touch with our partners from Silfab and Tesla. We are unfortunately at the end of this webinar. There were lots of questions around the recordings. The recording will be available to you. So lots of good feedback, great information in this webinar. And with that, thank you so much, Ryan and Mark, for being here today and for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and also giving us a glimpse into the latest and newest product innovations. We very much appreciate your partnership with Silfab and Tesla. Thank you so much. And also thank you, audience, for participating today. Please reach out for support, questions, wanting to be in touch with our vendors. We're here for you. Make sure you take those links in the chat. And we can't wait to be in touch with you. Thanks again so much, everyone.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.